never imagined a dress could cost my son his dignity. It was a warm Saturday afternoon, the kind we reserved for family barbecues in the backyard of my parents' home. My son, Theo, 7 years old, with grass-stained jeans and a toy plane in his hand, had been running around with his cousins, chasing shadows and laughter. The adults lounged beneath the gazebo. My sister, Lauren, had just made her grand entrance in some over-the-top designer gown, parading across the grass like she was walking the Met Gala. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. Theo, mid-sprint and not watching where he was going, accidentally stepped on the hem of her ridiculous beige dress. The silence that followed was instant and sharp. Lauren froze. Her hand flew to her mouth in mock horror, but her eyes, they were pure rage. Without a word, she lunged. Before I could move, she grabbed my son, my baby, by his hair. Not his arm, not his shoulder, his hair. She dragged him across the lawn, screaming, "Look what you did to my dress! You ruined it, you stupid little brat!" Theo screamed. His knees scraped against the stone path. His hands flailed. I sprinted toward them, heart pounding. "Lauren, let him go!" By the time I reached them, my son was trembling, cheeks streaked with tears, and Lauren still had a fistful of his hair in her claws. I shoved her back with all the strength I had. She stumbled, gasped dramatically, and clutched her dress like she was the victim. My father stormed over and got in my face. "You need to control your son," he barked, ignoring the red mark on Theo's temple. "He's destructive. Lauren's dress was custom-made for the gala next week." My mother nodded, arms folded. "He's always been out of line. Maybe you should discipline him better. And pushing your sister like that? You should be ashamed." "Ashamed?" Theo clung to my leg, still crying. I knelt, inspecting his scraped arms and patchy scalp. His curls, the ones he was so proud of, were matted with dirt and yanked out in patches. And my parents stood there defending Lauren. Again. I'd forgiven too many things growing up in that house. Like the time Lauren accidentally locked me in the attic during a storm, or when my parents called my scholarship a fluke while funding Lauren's fashion school in Paris. But this crossed every line. "You really think I'm going to let you hurt my son and blame him for it?" I said, my voice shaking. "She assaulted him, and you're backing her." My dad's voice dropped, cold and final. "It was a mistake. You're making drama, as always. Don't start threatening family over a dress." But I wasn't threatening. I was promising. That night, I took photos of Theo's injuries. I filed a police report. I called a lawyer. And I found every text, every voice note, every snide message Lauren had ever sent me about how Theo acted like a wild dog, how I was raising a problem. And I was done being the quiet daughter. They didn't know it yet, but Lauren's designer dreams, her upcoming sponsorship deal, and her brand-safe image as a local youth fashion coach were about to come crashing down, because justice wasn't in that beige gown, it was coming from the mother of the boy she dragged across the yard. The bruises on Theo's arms faded slowly, but the fear in his eyes didn't. He stopped sleeping through the night. He flinched whenever a door slammed. My once outgoing boy began avoiding the playground, clutching his toy plane like a lifeline. Every time he asked, "Mommy, am I bad?" my heart broke into smaller pieces. And the worst part? My family acted like nothing had happened. 3 days after the incident, my mother sent a group text. "Family dinner Friday, don't forget the pie." No apology, no check-in on Theo, just pie. Lauren, meanwhile, was posting on social media about her upcoming brand partnership with a local fashion boutique, smiling with captioned quotes like, "Peace always wins," and "Family first." Always. Hypocrisy has never looked more filtered. But I wasn't just grieving betrayal. I was building a case. I sat down with my attorney and showed her everything. The photos of Theo's injuries, the statements I'd recorded when Lauren tried to blame Theo for the dress, and the messages from my parents pressuring me to let it go for the family's sake. "That's emotional abuse," my lawyer said, scrolling through my screen. "And Lauren? She laid hands on a child. You have more than enough for a civil suit, possibly criminal charges." But I wasn't after jail time. I wanted something more permanent. You see, Lauren ran a youth fashion mentorship program for teenage girls, a program that required her to maintain a pristine public image. I knew the nonprofit board president, and I also knew that they would never tolerate a child abuser at the helm. While my lawyer filed paperwork and collected statements from the few cousins who had witnessed the incident, I contacted every sponsor, every press outlet, and every parent who trusted Lauren with their children. I didn't exaggerate. I told the truth with photos to prove it. The fallout began slowly. First, a local parenting blog posted an anonymous piece titled, "Would you trust this designer with your daughter?" featuring a blurred photo of Lauren yanking Theo's curls. Then one of her sponsors pulled out, "Due to conflicting values." Then another. Lauren showed up at my doorstep at 9 p.m. one evening, mascara streaking down her face. "You're ruining my career!" she screamed, pounding on the door. "I lost 3 contracts this week. What do you want from me?" I opened the door just enough for her to see Theo standing behind me, watching silently. "I want my son to feel safe," I said, voice low, "and I want you to understand that dragging a child across the ground is not something you walk away from with a photo shoot." "You're exaggerating. It wasn't that bad. He tripped." I held up my phone, playing the audio file I had recorded the day of the barbecue. Lauren's screeching voice calling Theo a brat, screaming that he ruined everything, the sound of him crying, the silence from my parents. Lauren staggered back. "Huh? I'll sue you for slander." I smiled, calm. "Try. The footage is real. And by the way, you'll be receiving court papers tomorrow. I'm taking you to civil court child endangerment, emotional trauma, and loss of safety. You won't just lose your sponsorships. You'll lose your right to be around my child. Permanently." Her face twisted into something between fury and disbelief. "Mom and Dad will never forgive you." "They already made their choice," I said. "Now, I'm making mine." As she stormed away, I closed the door and looked down at Theo. He looked up at me and asked, "Does this mean she can't hurt me again?" I bent down, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Not ever again." And I meant it. The courthouse smelled like cold marble and old paper. Theo clutched my hand tightly as we passed the security checkpoint. He wore a tiny blazer over his favorite cartoon shirt, and though his eyes were wide with nerves, he didn't cry. I did. Not in the way people think, but the kind of cry that sits behind your ribs, silent, heavy, watching your child walk into court because your own sister hurt him and your parents justified it. That's a grief you don't put into words. Lauren sat on the other side of the room, flanked by a polished attorney in a navy suit. Her hair was straight, styled, her expression cool and collected. She wouldn't even look at me. My parents sat behind her mom whispering to Dad, Dad occasionally shooting me a cold stare. They still hadn't said a word to me since the court summons. The judge, a stern woman with gray hair and calm eyes, called us to order. My attorney stood first. She didn't embellish. She didn't accuse without evidence. She simply let the facts speak. The child, age 7 at the time, was grabbed by the hair and physically dragged across a concrete patio by the defendant, his own aunt, during a family event. The reason given? He accidentally stepped on the hem of her dress. This is not discipline. This is assault. The courtroom was silent as my attorney showed the photos. One by one. The bruises. The scraped knees. The red marks on his scalp. Then came the audio recording. Lauren's voice enraged, calling Theo a worthless brat, yelling that he ruined her look, while my son sobbed and my parents told me to stop making a scene. When it finished, the silence was loud. Lauren's attorney rose, attempting a defense. The defendant reacted impulsively, but there is no lasting harm. Lasting harm? I stood up. He still wakes up screaming. He thinks being quiet makes him safer. He asks me every night if she'll show up again. That's harm. The judge raised her hand gently. You'll have your turn, Miss Dawson. I sat. My hands shook. Then Theo was called to the stand. He was small, fragile, but brave. The judge bent slightly forward. Theo, can you tell us what happened that day? He nodded. I stepped on her dress. I said sorry, but she pulled my hair and dragged me. I cried, and no one helped. Did you feel scared? He hesitated, then whispered, Yes. I thought I did something so bad I didn't deserve to be hugged. I covered my mouth, stifling a sob. The judge's jaw tightened. She thanked Theo and excused him. Then she looked at Lauren. "Miss Dawson," the judge said coldly, "you have shown not just poor judgment, but cruelty, and your family's enablership of your actions is equally disturbing. You will have no legal access to the child. You will stay 200 yards away from him, and you will pay damages. Additionally, your actions will be reported to every board associated with your mentorship program. This court will not allow abusers to hide behind family titles or PR smiles." Lauren's mouth dropped open. "This isn't fair. She's turning everyone against me." The judge stared her down. "No, Miss Dawson, you did that yourself." The verdict was publicized in the local press. Lauren lost her mentorship role within 48 hours. Every sponsor pulled out. Her Instagram went dark. Her once polished reputation crumbled in real time. But what surprised me most was what happened 2 weeks later. A lawyer showed up at my door representing my parents. They were suing for grandparent visitation rights. Their claim? Our daughter has unjustly alienated us from our grandchild. I laughed. For the first time in weeks, I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. I met them in court again this time with documentation of every text they ignored, every photo of Theo's bruises they dismissed, every time they told me to not make waves. The judge took one look at the file and denied their motion instantly. "You enabled abuse," the judge said. "This child's safety is more important than your family ego." After court, my mother stopped me in the parking lot. "We were just trying to keep the family together," she said, tears in her eyes. "Why would you destroy everything like this?" I looked her dead in the eye. "You destroyed it the moment you chose image over innocence." Then I walked away not out of rage, but peace. A few months later, I bought the house my parents had been renting from their longtime landlord, a property they thought they had a deal on, quietly, through a shell company. When their lease expired and the paperwork arrived with my name at the bottom, they finally understood. I wasn't their doormat anymore. They begged, cried, said they had nowhere to go. I offered one sentence before leaving them on the porch. "Now maybe someone will finally pity you." And with Theo holding my hand, we turned the page on a new life. Where his laughter wasn't a threat. Where justice wasn't just a word. Where I was no longer their scapegoat, but my son's protector. Forever. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.